Today, we're going to build this out of scrap wood. Stick around. Well, the first thing that we're going to do is grab some scrap wood. Here's my horrendously unorganized pile of scrap wood. This is a bunch of pallet wood, wood that I had milled up about a year or so ago. By the way, this is not the recommended method of getting wood out of your rafters. And you're probably wondering why I'm not touching any of those boxes of wood. That is wood that is saved for other projects. So we're going to grab our little design book, reference our little design sketch. I just roughly jotted down some ideas on what I could do for this little nightstand. And for the sake of Norm Abrams, we're going to measure 5 times and hopefully only cut once. Setting up the table saw so we can get those pieces of pallet wood trimmed down to what we need, mill them up, make them a little prettier than pallet wood. Ooh, what a nice camera angle. We're going to set up, cut those table legs to length. You got to clean off one end because those pallet wood pieces of wood are pretty rough. That little stop block there on the top of the workbench has been essential ever since I put that in. Definitely suggest doing that if you can. Yeah, let's measure again. Can't be too careful. So here what I'm doing right now is setting up for the taper. I'm gonna have a taper on the legs, just on one side. And I'm just kind of winging this. I don't really have a set plan. I'm just kind of going by what I think visually looks good. I think I went half of the table leg width, and then I think I went up like 6 inches. Give me a little taper. So here I'm setting up for cutting the taper, and this is just a homemade taper jig that I put together. Really crude, but does the job. I didn't have to go spend $100 on a tapering jig. Basically just a piece of plywood, and I cut some slots in the back for those little screws, and I made some clamp downs. And so it works pretty good. There's a little stop block in the back there where I just rest the piece so I can get nice cuts all the way through each piece. And notice I'm standing off to the side. Yeah, you don't want to be behind that blade just in case it kicks back one of those little wedges. So here what I'm doing now is I'd gotten some wood out of a bunk bed from a friend. And so I'm just kind of cleaning off those rounded edges to make them nice and square so that I can join them together. I'm going to use this wood as the top. So it has like a gray finish on it right now, which I'll eventually sand off, even though I am going to stain this nightstand a dark ebony color. right now, just kind of making it so I can glue these up, get a nice joint on these pieces of wood that I'm going to glue up. Let's cut these pieces down to rough size. So here you can see that the wood has got some holes, but we're going to end up filling those up later. Here's a little tip for you. If you're using these clamps to do your glue ups, put some tape on the bottom rails there. That way your glue doesn't get all gunked up inside of your clamp, and then you got to go through and use a wire brush to clean everything. Ask me how I know. So I just put a little bit of painter's tape down there to cover that up, and it keeps the metal rail clean. So we'll go through the typical clamping options. We're going to clamp where those boards are coming together to keep them nice and flush. And then we're going to run a clamp right down the middle to apply some pressure, downward pressure as well as upward pressure from the other clamps. And then just to make things a little bit easier later on, try to clean up some of that glue squeeze out top and bottom. And of course, clean up your workbench too. So these are the side pieces that I put together. And you can see that taper on the leg. And what I'm doing now is just getting a measurement for the connector piece. I don't know if they're rail styles, what they're called. But, so I just kind of laid it out on the workbench. I knew that I wanted it, 14 inches deep or so. So I just laid it out and then just took that measurement in between. Like I said, we're kind of winging this. So my plan, I realize this is a ingrained glue, but my plan is to glue this up, held together by some clamps, and then when that glue dries, then I'll go back and put some screws in it, and then I'll cover those screws up with some plugs. And that leg is a little out of square, which will kind of give me some hassles later on when I'm trying to work everything out with a little drawer and everything that I'm going to put in here. My son requested a simple nightstand. He didn't want anything fancy. He didn't want a shelf. He didn't want a drawer. He didn't want anything like that. He just wanted something to put next to his bed so that he could rest his drink and his phone and his clock. Of course, me being a woodworker, felt that, you got to have a drawer and you got to have a shelf, so why not? So I went ahead and took the liberty and did all that for him. Not really with a plan, but just kind of in my head knew what I wanted to do. Had to break out the little persuader. And if you picked that up on the video, yes, I purposely spelled the word persuader wrong on the hammer hanging in the background. That was intentional. But here we're just kind of cleaning that glue up a little bit. And then when that dries up, like I said, I will reinforce that with some screws. what I'm doing right now is I'm cutting up some wood so that I can make the drawer rails and all that good stuff, so we can have a little drawer in there. Little pre-drill. Try to always pre-drill your wood so that you don't get splitting. And any chance that I get, I always try to use the other pieces of the wood to make the measurements instead of relying on the tape measure. And those screw holes will eventually get plugged up when I go to stain this. So the top is dried up, so we're going to give it a quick little sand. Like I said, I'm taking this is the factory stain that came with the wood from the bunk bed, and those are some bolt holes from where you attach the side rails. And I'm going to eventually fill those up with some black epoxy. I'm going to stain this a dark ebony, so I'm assuming that you won't see it. It won't be too bad. So we're going to slap down some tape, fill those holes up on the back side so that when I fill it with epoxy, all that $1 million epoxy doesn't run out the bottom and get all over my work table. And that's a neat little 3D printed tape dispenser that I printed up. So here we're going to mix up some of this epoxy, equal parts, and then I'm going to use a little bit of black acrylic paint just to tint that, make it dark. And then just fill up those holes. And this is like, you got to do this like 3-4 times because that epoxy will kind of settle, find all the little cracks and things, and it'll seep down in there. So even though it's sticking out a little proud, it will eventually seep down into all those holes and it'll flatten out. You hit it with a heat gun, take out all the little bubbles, and then you can't waste the acrylic. So every time I do an epoxy pour, if I have leftover acrylic, I make these little epoxy coasters and have different silicone shapes. And I just put all the leftover in there so that I don't totally waste it. We've got them all over the house. So here you can see on those holes there, the epoxy didn't quite fill up. This was originally what I thought was going to be the top, but I ended up flipping it over and the epoxy was even on the bottom, so my bottom became the top. And like I said, it doesn't really matter all that much because I'm going to end up staining everything a ebony color anyway. You can see how the epoxy ran out of that from underneath that tape. So I just made this the top. I'm not even really sure what kind of wood this is, to be honest. It's really lightweight, but So I'm just going to use the nightstand itself to determine the size of those little plywood panels that I'm going to put in. That's just to cover the sides up so we can get a drawer in there. And I'm just going to put that in with some pocket holes. Just a couple on each side just to hold it in there. And you don't really have to glue this, but a little bit of glue isn't going to hurt. Keep things from moving around. I'm using this little rigid hand driver. It's so cool and so cute. It's really tiny. I hunted for one of those things for about a year before I found one on Marketplace. You don't have to press a trigger with it. It just, pressure of you pushing on it turns the driver on. It's really, really neat. Great camera angle here, but you get the idea. Just using some pocket holes, put that little panel in there. Try to keep everything flush. So here I'm making our little drawer. Nothing fancy on this. Pocket holes, butt joints, a little bit of glue. You know, I've been watching other YouTubers out there, and it always just fascinates me that they're able to use these pocket hole screws and everything just stays in line. And you saw right there, I just tried to hold it in place, and as soon as you put that screw in there, it shifts that piece of wood. So always use clamps if you want a really nice fit. And you'll see I got frustrated with myself because I didn't use clamps. So it's like, get the clamp out, butthead. Do what you gotta do. Use those clamps, hold that together, and then it won't move around on you when you put that screw in. So I cut the front board, the front face, about 1/4 of an inch heavy so that I could kind of push that plywood right up to the bottom so that it would be flat, because I'm not doing any drawer rails or anything like that on this. It's just going to be a drawer that just slides in. Nothing fancy. And I just put some pieces of wood inside so that kind of like little runners, little wood runners, just to keep the drawer in place. So I ended up being just a hair too big with my drawer. So I decided to take this really sketchy way of trimming this down. I wouldn't suggest doing this, but now she fits in there nice. of sanding so that we can get some stain on this thing. I've always hated sanding. I always thought that sanding was the worst part of woodworking, but ironically, sanding is the part that can make or break your piece and really make it look nice or look like an amateur built it. I realize that now, but I still don't like sanding. Normally I would run some hardwood across the top to cover up the plywood edges, but like I said, this is just a quick and dirty little nightstand that we're putting together, so we're not going to do anything too fancy. I'm going to use some hand sanding here to break the hard edges. It's something that always kind of fascinated me with woodworkers. We spend hours milling wood, making everything precise and 90 and all this. And then when we build the piece, we turn around and round over everything all over again. So just funny. But little sanding here, I plugged up all the screw holes, filled in any gaps because, you know, pallet wood is pallet wood. Just try to give it a little bit of a smooth surface. And break the sharp edges on the top. Not doing a round over per se, just kind of easing that sharp edge. So here we're going to do some staining. I've already stained the nightstand at this point, but I ended up putting a second coat on the nightstand and also on the top, so it took 2 coats. I did not use a conditioner, which I probably should have, so that's probably why I needed 2 coats of stain. So you can still see those holes that I filled in with epoxy, but it did darken up when I put a second coat on. And when I showed it to my son, he was okay with it. So we're going to attach the top, and I've just got a couple Z-clips on the inside so that I can attach that top, and just in case it wants to move on us, because it is pallet wood. The Z-clips are in there, and that'll allow that wood to move around. And so that's pretty much what we end up with here. I didn't stain the whole drawer box, only just the front of it. Got a little lazy. Had a handle sitting in a drawer, so I just kind of plopped a handle on there, and there we are. Well, there you have it. We built a simple nightstand out of scrap wood. Didn't have to buy a single thing. I walked around the shop here and picked up anything that I could grab that we could use for that nightstand. And I think it turned out okay. Hope you liked the video. If you did, you know, feel free, subscribe. Leave a comment down there if you want to talk about maybe I did something wrong or could do something a little bit better. But thanks for sticking around. See you on the next one.